This is not a test. Don't expect to be impressed. Put on your life vest. Sit down your armrest. It's time to stray from the grind. Don't take my hand, 'cause you'll find no peace of mind. Side quest.
So, hi everybody. I'm Misty Massey. I'm one of the Calamity Janes. I play the sun-drenched cleric Malibu, and I am joined tonight by Emily Kaplan, who plays Claudia. Who plays Claudia?
Okay.
I know, I'm so not ready. Who plays Claudia? And our beloved Rachel R.E. Carr, who usually is running us ragged through the scary world of her own imagination.
I deny everything.
Tonight, we're helping the guys out a little bit by jumping in and recording a side quest without them. And we have invited a friend of mine, Catherine Barson, who I met Catherine years ago at the Carolina Renaissance Festival, where we were both pin-wearing wenches. Huzzah! We later re-met at Contemporal, a con that no longer exists. It's totally not my fault, even though it was the last year of it that we met at, but it's totally not my fault that it doesn't exist anymore. She was performing there with her band, the Gin Rebellion. They were a steampunk band, and they were fabulous, and I fangirled like a lunatic, and learned that she was not only a wench and a talented musician, but a geek girl like me too. I run into her all the time at different cons around the Southeast, and lately I learned that she has started a food blog, The Gluttonous Geek, on which she explores food's relationship to fandom. She uses her English degree and years of trial and error in the kitchen to create recipes from and inspired by movies, books, TV shows, video games, and so many more fan-related things. From there, she started streaming her own food show, Munchies and Minis, which is on Twitch every Wednesday. So being food nerds ourselves, we Janes decided it was time to bring Catherine over for a visit. So welcome, Catherine Barson.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So, I was looking at your blog this afternoon and looking at all the delicious recipes that you've come up with. What made you decide that this was a good idea, that you needed to create these recipes to go with the fandom that you love?
Okay, well, it was I want to say a conglomeration of things. At the time, I was already kind of making recipes based off of fandom, just for fun. I know that Battle and Brew, our local geek bar, was at the time had an annual cooking competition, cookie competition, and the first year I ended up making just my bourbon cayenne chocolate chip cookies, and just threw a nerd name on it because I tried to make this recipe based off of Willy Wonka's chocolate, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, based off the the wholemeal chewing gum.
Yeah.
And I tried to make these sugar cookies, but there were pinwheels with blueberry jam and bits of bacon and potato chip and all that put in there. And unfortunately, it ended up baking to taste like a vanilla sugar cookie.
Which is not bad, but
It's not bad, but it's not what I was going for. So I ended up scrapping the whole thing in the middle of the night and just going, okay, we're just gonna make this chocolate chip cookie with cayenne and put bourbon caramel, call it Gambit's Flaming Aces or something like that. Okay.
you had me at Gambit. Carry on.
You had me at bourbon.
Yeah, Gambit's Raging Cajun chocolate chip cookies, and I ended up winning. I want to say the best tasting, and I also won the following year the whole thing for My Little Pony themed Zap apple cookie with basically cornbread sugar cookies with rosemary and kind of a buttercream icing that I tried making like rainbow colors. It looked good enough, but I'd already done that. Um, by around the time before I started the Gluttonous Geek, my roommate at the time, Brianna Lamb of the Lady Nerd, was trying to do a cooking segment for her blog where she would do a dinner to movie sort of segment and teach herself how to cook. Really went with her going on Pinterest and finding a bunch of recipes she wanted to figure out how to make, and I would cook them and teach her how to cook them and then put pictures on her social media. She was going to do blog posts for it, but it never came to fruition. So we did Roman Holiday, did a bunch of Pinterest recipes, and then we did Anna and the King. And Anna and the King, it's, I want to say, American Civil War era English woman in Thailand. Significantly more difficult to find recipes that would go along with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I had a Downton Abbey official, unofficial cookbook. I'm going, okay, what are some English recipes that we can put a Thai spin on? And we ended up making these little cucumber cakes with shrimp and sauce. And I went, having lived in England for a while when I was younger, the big thing that really kind of strikes me as more English than anything else is some kind of shepherd's pie or cottage pie.
Oh, yum.
I mean, that seems to be sort of the taste of home for me in the UK. So let's just do a version of that. And ended up making a cottage pie with peanut sauce, ground chicken, God, what else? A sweet potato and coconut milk crust. And it tasted amazing. The photos of it at the time were terrible because this is before I learned anything about food photography or plate staging, and there are just some dishes that will look like a bowl of mush.
Oh yeah.
No matter how, yeah, no matter how delicious they are. And it was at that point I'm just going, I can do this. I can create these recipes that have this sort of pair. And I was this was not the first time I tried starting a blog. I mean, I had a writing blog that went absolutely nowhere when I was younger. It partially was because I never actually finished a book and like, oh, well, I have an English degree and I'm a copywriter. I know what I'm doing.
You're here.
I know. We're all nodding
Oh.
in solidarity.
Yeah. First of all, everything you say, I'm just like listening because it's basically food porn for my ears. I'm like, wait, go back to the bourbon. Oh, wait, okay. And while you've been talking, I've been on your blog, which is thegluttonousgeek.com, looking at flipping through your links for recipes and looking at trying to find the pictures while you're describing each one. And I'm like, wait, okay.
Oh, I see you're doing that too, Emily, but
Yes,
we are
amazing.
going to have a chicken and dumpling discussion as a Tennessee raised woman who prides herself on having the Falstaff Book official chicken and dumpling recipe now. I am definitely one that will argue certain things with you. And I feel like we're ready to rumble because there are two distinct dumpling, schools of thought. And we seem to be in polar opposite ones, and I don't know how I feel about it.
I need details here. What does this mean?
Oh gosh. So
are we ready to throw down this early? Let's go.
Oh, hell, why not?
Thing is, I cannot stand restaurant chicken and dumplings most of the time.
Well, a lot are horrible. Let's be real.
Exactly. I mean, it's usually like completely flavorless broth. I mean, it's just wow,
yeah.
we've added maybe some milk to a standard chicken noodle broth.
Milk?
And
what the heck? Where have you been eating chicken and dumplings? There is no milk in chicken and dumplings.
I know. It's basically glue. It's like kind of a glue kind of
It's a cornstarch
consistency of
slurry.
gravy.
It's the starch off the dumplings, or it's cornstarch, but there is no dairy. There shouldn't be.
Yeah. And it's so flavorless. It needs I want to say a metric ton of salt to get any kind of flavor out of the gravy whatsoever. And it's just squishy kind of pasta bits. And there's hardly any vegetables. And I will admit, this has been like Cracker Barrel and
oh dear.
yeah. Or when, oh heaven forbid, the time I went up to Cincinnati on the way up to Gen Con, and the hotel I had was serving chicken and dumplings for dinner. I'm going, what is this slop?
Cincinnati? No offense to the listeners in Ohio, but if you're gonna go to Cincinnati, get the weird chili with the 7 layers while you're there.
It was a free dinner, so what can I say? No, if you want to go to Cincinnati for food, just go to Jungle Gyms and just stock up and then leave Cincinnati.
But but one must argue that at its core, chicken and dumplings is a simple peasant dish. It is about highlighting the flavor of a chicken. It should be. And I will die on this hill. It is made by cooking a chicken in a chicken broth so that it is extremely chickeny with a decent amount of salt and some onion, and that is it. I will occasionally allow, if you want some carrots, those are garnish. But it is about chicken and onion and salt, cooked simply, and the dumplings are a biscuit method folded dough that should be worked. Also simple. There should be a lot of black pepper at the end, and it should be only thickened with the starch off your dumplings. And this is a hill I will die on, because if you can't taste the chicken and the dumplings, it is just a friggin' stew with a spetzel. Okay?
Rachel got some opinions.
I have some opinions on this is like Tennessee pride coming out, even though I have completely taken enough elocution lessons to squelch my native accent. But this is where the rage will come. A chicken and dumpling recipe, it is about purity, simplicity, and chicken flavor. So saith Rachel, laying the hammer down.
We should apologize to Catherine and explain that your Instagram is the bread slut, and you use the hashtag the bread
That is
slut.
true. I am the bread slut.
She's a bit of a foodie. I've received cookies in the mail from Rachel, and we're many states apart, I should also add,
Yes.
and some delicious what do you call it? Blood orange preserves?
Oh yeah, the blood orange cranberry marmalade.
Yes, the marmalade. That was amazing. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned marmalade. I have a recipe in one of my Munchies and Minis episodes for a blood orange marmalade. Well, part of it's blood oranges, because blood oranges are expensive.
Yeah, you always want to fortify them. They don't make the best marmalade on their own because the rinds are kind of thick.
No, I think I did a mix of blood orange and I think it was navel orange at the time.
Yeah,
and
that would make sense.
I was basing it off of the role-playing game Blue Rose.
Ooh.
I don't know if you heard of it, but for the sake of your listeners, Blue Rose is a tabletop role-playing game, very much in the Dungeons and Dragons sort of mindset, but it's more of the I want to say romantic fantasy style genre. And by romantic, I don't mean just, bodice rippers. I mean ones that are more, I want to say, character focused and
plot before the bodice ripping.
There's still some bodice ripping, but it's if you've ever read any books by Mercedes Lackey or Tamora Pierce,
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of focus in storytelling. It has more of that sort of aspect with some fairy tale aspects, and solving problems more by kind of talking things through and solving mysteries and political intrigue and that sort of thing. But But the thing is, the main campaign city of Aldous, has a orchard, the Via Fruta orchard with famous marmalade. Marmalade apparently is the name for orange honey, and it was supposedly invented at this orchard by a roamer, and roamer is kind of their thinly veiled race of humans, very much like thinly veiled as the Roma from our world.
Okay.
So I had to kind of figure out how to make a marmalade with Romani flavors. So I did the blood orange, navel orange, but I also included, goodness, I want to say ginger and black pepper, and I want to say juniper berry, but it's a very cuisine is very, I want to say, black pepper and cumin based as well.
Interesting.
So it's trying to incorporate those flavors into a marmalade, and it turned out pretty darn well. I just didn't realize how long it would take to boil this marmalade.
Oh my god, yeah. Emily, I think, got the regale on the whole process of, I'm like, I did marmalade from scratch. I will never complain about paying like $6 to $10 for a jar. I totally respect, and I'm giving you a big salute. I may have chicken and dumpling ranted, but please no. It's just everyone, you know how everyone has that one dish that they're very protective of. That's mine.
Oh yeah.
And I do want to hear more about yours, by the way, just to circle back to, because you did have crispy chicken skin, and crispy chicken skin is probably one of my love languages.
Definitely is one of mine.
You know, there's gifts, there's words, there's touch, there's crispy chicken skin.
Yes, there is. And ramen noodles. Everyone knows that the ultimate Rachel love language is ramen.
Yeah. So Catherine, tell us about your chicken and
yes,
dumplings.
please.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I was trying to create a chicken and dumpling recipe based off of the Hungry Halfling from Dungeons and Dragons, and specifically from Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Thing is, it's kind of funny. I mean, a lot of folks don't really know just how extensive in the campaign setting Dungeons & Dragons has gotten, especially with the Forgotten Realms setting. And, I mean, part of it is you have some folks who've worked on it that are not exactly... That's a whole level of TSR drama in that respect there. But back during 2nd edition, Ed Greenwood created these travel guides to the Forgotten Realms campaign setting.
I do remember those.
Written from the point of view of this bard, Volo, who is stuffy and just completely wordy. And so the great thing about this set of travel guides is that you don't necessarily have to play 2nd edition to still use them for your games. Unfortunately, they're out of print, but you can find a PDF online pretty quickly and for free. I will note. But there's each one of these books, Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast, Volo's Guide to Daylands, Volo's Guide to Waterdeep. He lists off different taverns and inns and shops within these cities and countries that your party can visit, and he rates that. There's a rating system with how good or terrible the food is. He lists off all of these specialties of the house, plus the descriptions of the inside of these taverns and rumors that happen to accumulate in these locations. But anyway, the Hungry Halfling is located in Cormorp, which is kind of the breadbasket for this, I want to say, the western side of Baldur's Gate. And that's actually where a lot of halfling families have gone to visit and then realize they like it so much they're going to just permanently move there.
As you do.
Yes. So this little farming town is host to just burrows upon burrows of halfling households. And the Hungry Halfling is the main watering hole, tavern and inn in the area, and is famous for its chicken dumplings. Volo doesn't really go to describe it much from there, so I had to take quite a few liberties based off of what I've seen of halfling cuisine throughout the Volo's guides, but also just Dungeons and Dragons in general, and also just kind of the attitude of halflings, the whole attitude of enjoying things that grow, as well as just kind of like enjoying richness of the earth and Earth's bounty. So yes, we have our traditional chicken and dumplings,
Which are
but
awesome. I am
Oh, yeah.
required by law to say this every time they are mentioned.
I think halflings would probably want something that highlights a bit more of things that they've grown. So
I will give you that
Um,
reluctantly, as I am pretty much part halfling in real life.
I want to say that the halflings of Corm Orp in particular are proud of their I want to say their free range hogs, and let me bring up my own darn recipe here.
The chicken skin.
well-
let's just.
Yeah, while you're talking, anyone listening to this needs to stop immediately, go to the gluttonousgeek.com and look up the Hungry Halfling chicken and dumplings recipe, because the photograph,
It is
and you were talking
sexy.
about photography. Yeah, you were talking about this earlier. This is amazing. You've got like this earthenware kind of bowl full of chicken and dumplings with the crispy skin on top and some, like, I don't know, flat leaf parsley, maybe some thistles in the background. We've got fresh flowers and a set of dice, of course. It's just that's an amazing photo.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
It is food porn. We won't lie on that.
So, the Catholics of Corm Orp are especially proud of their mushrooms and free range hogs. So I put mushrooms and bacon. In fact, I want to say that I cooked the bacon first to then have the bacon fat in the Dutch oven
Oh yes.
to then cook the chicken like they do the initial cook of the chicken in the bacon fat. And that's also where I've like cooked a bit of like the vegetables, which I did peas, carrots, and apples, because I figure, kind of an orchard and sort of farm flavor in there as well. Before thickening up with some flour and just a splash of sherry, because they're on the trade routes between Baldur's Gate and Am and all that.
And sherry is delicious with mushrooms and bacon. It forms
yeah.
one of those. Throw in thyme, and you've
yeah.
basically got France in a bowl.
But another thing I noticed specifically about halfling cuisine, especially throughout Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast, is that they use nuts a lot in their beer and their bread and just a lot of their cooking, especially almonds. So, and if I want to be honest too, I was basing this a little bit on kind of a modern version of blancmange, which is a medieval recipe where it's chicken cooked in almond milk, usually with rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I used almond milk to then simmer everything in, and that I feel kind of lightened up the recipe a bit, while added this sort of kind of have you ever had grape nuts? Like, you know how the milk tastes after eating grape nuts?
Yeah.
It kind of gave that sort of fruity flavor to it,
Oh.
oddly enough. But yeah, then my dumplings. I personally like my dumplings fluffy.
Yeah, that
But-
we called those Yankee dumplings. So disclaimer for our Southern fans: these are Yankee dumplings. They are fine examples of them, but please keep that in mind.
But I also don't really like the whole just baked crust of dumplings on top, which happens if you just stick the whole thing in the oven. But that's also, you kind of want to have sort of a mix. So what you do is then you you make up this dough, and then you, like, towards the end, put basically blobs of it into the gravy, and then cover it with the lid to steam the top of it. Now, it gets it crunches things up a bit, but it doesn't create this giant crust that's not really chicken and dumplings as it is kind of a biscuit-topped chicken pot pie. which tends to happen, as you said, with Yankee Dumplings. So
Yes.
it actually worked out really well. And I didn't want to do biscuit dough because I wanted the dumplings to be a star on their own,
Mm-hmm.
which seems like a very halfling thing to do. So I blended in Italian parsley, and what else did I do?
I will say Italian
Yes,
parsley
fresh thyme.
is lovely, and thyme. That's actually used a lot in the South. You can accept those. As my cat is attacking me while I'm trying to do something. So everyone say hi to Tsunami.
Hi,
She's
Hello.
Tsunami.
Yeah.
My fuzzy boy Schrodinger is next to me right now.
Aww, I
Cute
love
name.
that. That's my favorite kitty cat name.
But I have to say, as you're talking here, I'm definitely having a When Harry Met Sally moment where she's in the cafe having the fake orgasm. This just sounds
Wait till we get to
really
some
delicious.
chocolate recipes. We'll get you there, Emily. I promise.
Oh,
But yeah, I
man,
will
think
say that the technique is solid because you do have to put the lid on if you want your dumplings to cook all the way through. Otherwise, you can get them chalky on top. Because when they start to float, like the bottom half will cook, but the top won't if you don't put the lid on. So
Yep. And then it has kind of a gummy consistency because it doesn't actually. I don't think it actually gets hot enough to release all of that and
no,
crisp up and
the
everything.
starch won't gelatinize firmly. I mean, there should be a little bit of chew in a dumpling. As I said, I'm in the I roll mine out and they have layers, so they're kind of like biscuits that have been stewed. So I do get that. They're very different. They are much denser than ye old Yankee fluffy dumplings, which I must confess my father makes, for I am half Yankee.
Gasp! No.
I know.
I am the child of Midwesterners, so I completely understand.
Hey,
Catherine, I have a left field question for you, and that is there a food that you do not like whatsoever?
Oh gosh. I'm not a huge fan of banana bread, but I'll eat it.
yes, a fellow banana bread hater.
They can be united in this bond.
Yes.
Actually,
my
I'm
gosh.
there too because I'll eat it, but I don't especially like it. And fortunately, my husband and my son like it. So if the bananas go over, I have somewhere to put them. But I can
they
make
go
the banana
into
bread
the
for
men
them.
who can digest carbs.
Oh man.
Right?
And I know this makes me a bad Romanian, but I can't stand sweet gherkin pickles. I just it's just no.
I'll take them.
Those
Thank you.
flavors. It's like give me dill pickles, give me pickled onions, give me like Korean pickles, give me freaking kimchi.
Oh,
but just
kimchi
don't,
is the food of the gods, so let's...
My husband is crazy about kimchi.
That is something I would like to try to make, actually.
I've made it. It's not that difficult.
One of our regular crew guys is married to a Korean woman, and I know that she makes kimchi that people rave about. So maybe we should get a recipe and have a do it yourself at home along with her or something like that.
I'll say kimchi is definitely on the easier end of home fermentation. Like cabbage is your friend. It's easy.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny for me looking at Korean food and coming from a Romanian family, and just going, there's so many similar flavor profiles, or at least disciplines in Korean cuisine, and Romanian cuisine.
Oh yeah.
Especially aimed towards the elevating rustic stuff. But it's almost kind of in a, I want to say, comfort food sort of level.
The peasant dishes, like you've got Italy, Eastern Europe, Korea, parts of Chinese cuisine where it's all about making the cheap stuff taste phenomenal. Anti-classical French.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated how some Western techniques have been adopted into some Asian food cultures. And so then you think, oh, this is going to be completely alien to me because I've never tried Vietnamese food. And then you go have Vietnamese food and you're going, wait a minute, there's familiarity. I can relate to this food. It is not so strange. And so you can find if you're nervous, if you're a picky eater, you can find some place to relate and enjoy it, and so that's fun. I'm not a picky eater anymore. I used to be, so
I think
Well,
a lot of
it's
people are recovering picky eaters.
yeah. I had to get grown before I could be adventurous and try things, but
it's actually interesting seeing how food culture developed, especially if you're looking, well, for example, classical French cooking as opposed to, well, everything else at the time. It was really, um, I want to say it's probably the same reason why the English started speaking in posh accents. Um,
It was definitely a social elevation. It was
yes.
fascinating, even if we use
Well,
Russian formal service instead of French.
well, I mean, everything became based off of, I want to say meat sauces
Hmm.
and how to subtly enhanced one particular dish, but as a result, so many spices just got sort of dropped from everything else. Like, let's just not focus on any vegetables. And I mean, admittedly, the not focusing on vegetables bit is a little bit of the medieval sort of standpoint,
right.
um, because
Meat was
vegetables were
status.
considered low
Yeah.
and
And
not.
yet still exists in places in America.
I used to
Oh
be married
gosh.
to the captain. Dinner ain't dinner unless something died, and now he eats tofu. So I've worked it. It takes a while.
hmm
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of this was born out of snobbery, but too, especially American cuisine. I mean, there was the whole concept of a chicken in every pot.
Yeah.
It was based entirely off of social standards, and when certain things that were considered elevated then became cheap, it then kind of dominated cuisine. But also, you had a lot of folks who didn't really know what they were doing and just kind of like, let's throw everything into gelatin.
Oh, the
I mean, that makes it
50s.
fancy,
Ah!
right?
The
No,
50s.
aspic is a sin.
Oh God.
I mean, then you have folks like my grandmother who would put butter on put butter on bread before putting it in the toaster. I don't know how she burned. I don't know how she did that without burning the house down.
Oh, I have to say one thing about gelatin, and a shout out to my friend Sarah, who did not want to host Thanksgiving a couple years ago and was forced to kind of by her family. So she made every single dish a jello mold.
No.
Oh God. Even the turkey.
Yes, she
Oh.
found she found a vintage recipe. Everything was pretty, vintage. And she had all these Tupperware type molds that she'd
mhm.
collected. And so she had, like the suspended peas and clear jello. And what was it? She experimented once with the horrible SpaghettiOs one and
Ugh.
mini sausages. It was just a nightmare, but hilarious.
Oh, that's
gosh.
brilliant revenge.
And she did not have to host again after that.
Oh, I am
I should have
bowing
thought
down.
of that. I have to cook for everybody because I'm the only one in my family that can cook other than like my nephew. So
Yeah.
And I mean, there has been a lot of issue with cooking skills just kind of going down the toilet, and I mean, part of it was, I mean, for one, we've lost all of our home ec classes
Yeah.
because
And
yeah, apparently they're not real academics. Part of it too is it's the whole, well, why aren't the parents teaching this stuff? And it's like, well, we're no longer in an economy where you can only have one breadwinner in the family and
Mhm.
be able to afford anything.
right.
Yeah.
And
Super long work days.
I will hide
yeah.
in my corner
Convenience meals.
as I'm a
Fast
freak
food.
over
Yep.
here, so it's okay.
they're wrong about that. But as a result, a lot of folks don't really learn a lot of the I want to say conservation ways of making something last either.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, post-war industrialization has really screwed up our diets between all the pre-made stuff and um, all a billion preservatives. It's actually less expensive to buy pre-made stuff now than it is to get the raw ingredients to make it.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Unless you're buying in bulk, and even then, your refrigeration or pantry space is limited, especially if you're working full time in an apartment.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think I want to say that probably the healthiest cooking I'd ever done was when I had been laid off from my job and I was living in an apartment that was a 15-minute walk to the grocery store. So I would go on a walk and find out what was on sale and just buy one or two ingredients on the time. And I could even just go every day where I'd be getting a walk in and I'd constantly would have fresh produce because it wouldn't go bad on me because I didn't have to work
Right.
at the time.
Kind of like the old going to the market every day routine of the of very long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
lovely.
almost a luxury today, which is really a sad commentary.
It really
Yeah.
is. 'Cause,
I am
you know,
very spoiled because I live in a city, so I can like walk to. I have there's an Asian market, there's a farmers market, and
hmm
a Hispanic foods market. So, which if you don't shop at I jokingly say the non-white people stores,
hmm
the amount of money you can save by going there. The only thing I found though is that a lot of them, they do the same thing. They buy the produce in bulk and you don't know how long it's been there. So you really have to play the game of smelling everything, touching everything and going, okay, this is what I have. You have to have that like almost insane, this is what I have to cook today. This is what I have to preserve, or I have to break it down to make it last. But that's the necessity that happens when you have time but not money. And unfortunately for most people, time is the biggest luxury. So I don't knock the people who get pre-made stuff.
Oh, sure.
And I don't either. I mean, thing is, when it comes down to it, the stuff you see on my blog is actually quite a bit different from how I would normally feed myself during the week. And a lot has to do with what I happen to find in the source material and what I have to base it off of. I mean, there are a lot of cases where I'm not doing like full-on reproductions of things that I find in books or TV shows or movies and that sort of thing.
No dragon meat? Couldn't find any?
I've resolved that dragon meat is pork. At least when I played Battle Chef Brigade, every dish that they had based off of dragon meat was a traditionally a pork-based dish. So I'm just going, you know what? We're just going to do pork. They eat everything. It makes sense for dragons.
Not crocodile?
It's still...
That works. That works. Well,
no,
you know,
I would never wish cooking crocodile on anyone. If you've never done it, it is like cooking nightmare. It is really hard to get right.
And they always say it tastes like chicken.
It does not taste like chicken. It tastes like chewy fish.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
I was like that the first
pork and a baby.
The only time I ever had frog legs, they tasted like chewy fish, and people were like, "No, it tastes like chicken. It tastes like chicken." No, it doesn't. It doesn't taste like chicken, and the texture's not like chicken, so don't even try. But
there's a reason why I don't really opt for gator meat on the menu all that much. It's just too chewy for me. Even though I love octopus, but usually you just love octopus when it's been braised.
Yeah.
Especially Spanish octopus. Oh my god.
Oh, have you had Greek octopus where it's braised and then there's like lots of oregano and olive oil and lemon and it's just finished on the grill for a bit of char on the suckers?
It actually sounds a little bit how they prepare it with like in Mexico.
It is. Oh yeah, they're very similar. I got the joy of getting to have it in Mexico on the beach where it had been slapped on the rocks outside. Like you could see them slapping it with a really spicy oh my god, I'm drooling over the spicy pepper sauce and the tacos de pulpo. Let's just tell me more.
We were in Puerto Vallarta for our anniversary, I want to say 2-3 years ago. And oh man, we were like we managed to go to Los Colomitos, which is Mexico's smallest beach. It's I want to say the width of it was, if Misty remembers, the main room at Jordan Con where like all the author tables were.
Yeah.
I want to say it was about 3/4 of the width. It was about 3/4 the length of that room.
Okay.
And the only way to get to it is either to hike or take a water taxi. We made the mistake of hiking the first round.
Oh my gosh.
And it was mostly uphill. And of course, it's like while it's on the coast, it's still under trees, so all the heat is trapped under the trees,
Right, yeah.
and that was not fun. But we discovered that you could take a water taxi back. We're doing that. How much is
Yay!
it? How much is it back? 20 pesos? Heck yeah.
Here's my money.
Yeah, but when we got back, there's the Boca de Tomatlan. It's the little village with that the water taxis go out of, where we parked, and just decided to go sit under a palapa on the beach. Got ceviche, got swordfish. Was it? I want to say swordfish tacos and octopus ceviche and margaritas, and we're just hanging out, watching the ocean. I'm going, I get it now. I could just sit here for hours, but
if it were my
between
players, they would just sit there for hours, and I would not get them to fight anything for the rest of the game session. So
It's true. We never
yeah.
leave the pub.
no,
I would.
But I mean, between
Totally on the
that
beach.
and the cooking class that we took on the rooftop of one of the buildings in Puerto Vallarta,
Oh,
it was $60 a person, and you get up there in the morning, you walk down to the market, the chef like has you like go to the different local food stalls and like try a tortilla, the press, some bean dip and all that, and we all go back to the restaurant and go on the rooftop of this restaurant overlooking the entirety of Puerto Vallarta and the ocean and all that. Cook for the next few hours, making several salsas, some chiles relleno. I'm talking like not the stuffed bell peppers. I'm talking the poblano peppers with the panela cheese, and then battered with that kind of egg white concoction and deep fried. That sort of chili relleno.
So let's just
Yeah.
moment of silence for a proper chili relleno.
Yeah, you're in my territory now. I grew up in Tucson.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
fell in love with Mexican food and Mexican cuisine in Mexico. We're going to
It's so different if you've only had Tex-Mex. Well, it depends on what region you are. I will say northwestern Mexico is very much like Tex-Mex.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like saying that American cuisine is just like cherry pie and hamburgers.
The Cajuns are officially mutinying, and I think our chicken and dumplings argument has already.
Yeah, so many regions, so many varieties.
Yeah.
But that's how it's
It's like going to India and saying Indian food. Every grandmother
when
laughs
it's
at
really
you and they feed
you're getting
you.
Bangladeshi cuisine, and mostly it's kind of anglicized Bangladeshi cuisine, which
I
love it.
love that most people's favorite curry was invented in Scotland. Chicken tikka masala.
oh yeah.
Everyone want the history of that.
But
As I'm married to a Brit, so I get all the history of all the British curries, which I'm required to make. Actually, I make him make them now. He's learned.
Catherine, I have another question for you.
sure.
Another
Oh, she's keeping us on task.
another left field question. Are you in a D&D or RPG game right now? Do you play regularly?
Ah, man, that's the trouble with playing is just scheduling. I was
Don't
playing
we know?
D&D.
We know.
Yeah.
We know.
Gosh. I actually I want to say I perform in tabletop role-playing games more than I actually get to play in a regular game. I was playing in this D&D game run by my friend Strike. Strike Red Kite, he's on Twitter. He actually runs Chaotic Tiefling show, the Utharian Legends on the Sunday Brunch Club, on Chaotic Tiefling's channel. And so we were playing one of the side games, which was interesting to play as a character because I just realized how obnoxious my characters can be. Especially when when I'm not having to perform for anyone. I mean, performing is like you have to keep timing in mind, but when you're not performing, it's the I'm not going to worry about how much I curse or say things that could be innuendo for things. I mean, it's
Clearly, you've never.
Yeah, we should have assured you anything goes basically on our podcast.
Well, we are R-rated Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, I will say that the way Strike has described, he would actually run 3 groups, playing in his homebrew campaign setting. and only one of them was the brunch club was the one that was being streamed. Ours would be streamed sometimes, but he had the Sunday group, he had the Tuesday group, and us, the Thursday group. So he would say that the Sunday group, like, oh yeah, he has to worry about innuendo with them. And then he goes to his Tuesday group, and they're like, hold my beer. And then he comes to us, our Thursday group, and we're just going, we brought beer. That was us, especially with our I want to say our cleric, no, as our paladin, who had a rod of lordly might. So you can imagine.
My. How many innuendos?
All
How
of
many?
them.
What's your favorite rod of lordly might innuendo that you can share? We're R-rated, so go ahead.
Oh gosh. Now it's been so long since we played this game. I'm trying to remember all of it. I'm gonna hit it with my rod.
I'm just thinking that we need to make sure that Silas
Does he
never
beat
gets
things
one.
with his rod?
Yeah, he beats things with his rod. He smites with his rod. He makes things explode.
Is it well handled?
Oh, it's very
the
well
rod?
handled.
I had the left field question. Did you ever have to cook for your Dungeons and Dragons group? Because I remember that was a huge part of my growing up playing D&D, is that I was the host house and I was the host cook.
I know that when we when we were in our Star Wars game, and that was
you played Star
that was
Wars?
being DM'd by my friend Henry Walsh, who is actually one of the authors who will be at Multiverse Con in October. We would normally have it at his house, and his roommates would cook, but we would also cycle around bringing food or cooking. And I think the time I got to do it, I think I had the largest drive, so I ended up doing, I want to say, sous vide pork chops, because that was it's especially easy for me, where all I have to bring is the sous vide machine. It's like, oh, you have a stock pot, we'll use that. And that way it was done within about an hour or two, and all I really had to do was roast up some vegetables and do a quick sear on the pork chops once they were finished. Yeah, I've managed to, I want to say, make cooking for groups almost into a science.
I will say sous vides have spoiled us. Like, if you've never used it, just to really quickly explain for the people who are not extreme cooking geeks, it's basically a thermal immersion circulator that you can just stick in I have a plastic bucket. Or you can use a stock pot or something, and it sets the temperature, so you can basically just throw a plastic bag of food or a jar in it, and even though it takes a long time to cook, you really can't overcook it, so it's great for doing like large batches. You can do scrambled eggs. You can make cookie dough that you can eat raw.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We've all done the cookie dough, haven't we?
Well, it's the only way I cook steak now, because I keep on
salmon too. It's another good one.
I keep on getting so paranoid about whether or not I've overcooked steak.
Which is a crime. If people are listening, you will be sent to jail. Anyone on the Calamity Jane's podcast who suggests that a steak should not be medium rare will immediately get punished and kidnapped by a badger.
I ain't saying nothing.
Just so you know.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm
badgers.
medium rare person.
Oh gosh.
Well, actually, I had a question for you, Catherine. What are some fandom foods that you're hoping to explore in the future that you haven't gotten to yet?
Well, I finally got around to cooking the one I've been, I want to say, amping up for the past 2 years, and that was smoked barbecue brisket based off of the Percy Jackson series. Yeah. Well, I am also a Hellenist, so I wanted to be able to honor each one of the Olympians within this recipe.
Was there pomegranate for Hades and Persephone?
There was, and I did a.
I guessed it.
Oh gosh, I actually have the notes here. Let's see.
I'm just gonna squeak quietly and hopefully not break my mic, because If anyone's read
Yeah,
my books, you'll know that I am a mytho.
If you need a minute, Catherine, I want to read a couple of things as I'm scrolling through your blog.
Sure.
We've got from Firefly, Kaylee's Shindig Sliders. We've got from I Zombie.
shiny.
Oh, I love that show. Meet Cute's stuffed gnocchi with, what is it?
Raw Diavolo.
Divolo sauce.
Yeah.
I love that.
The food in that show was
I'm drooling over
show
here.
was hilarious because she had to eat, brains. You've got
Brains are also tough to cook. They're kind of like crocodile. They're not the easiest.
I think I did like chicken sausage and stuff just because I part of it too is the ingredient availability.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Outlander, How to Die with Brioche. What is that? Skirly?
Howdy.
How toddy.
Yeah, with Skirly. Did
yeah, orange tarragon. Ooh, I don't even know.
Velouté.
Velouté sauce.
Yeah.
Oh, the velouté, the most abused of sauces. If you watch competitive cooking shows, it's risottos and velouté sauces. If you hear any of those words, you know pain.
Yeah,
I was trying to do I want to say a French take on a Scottish recipe for season 2, and funny thing is, a lot of Scottish cuisine is French cuisine because of the alliance that they had.
Ah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Norman cuisine and English, Scottish, it all blur. Like, you sometimes go, which is that from?
I just ran across the dragon eggs. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm going, I gotta go to the grocery store. Because I need me some artichokes
Would you
right now.
What are the dragon eggs again?
Those were cheese balls.
Are they artichokes?
I made oh, go ahead.
It's the artichokes with the egg inside.
Oh, those.
Yeah. Daenerys' dragon eggs. Oh.
Those are actually based off an Italian recipe for stuffed artichokes. I just decided to do a soft-boiled egg inside of them as they were, I want to say, braising. And yeah, I
have a very unhealthy desire right this minute for.
I have a feeling we're gonna have a follow-up. Like, all of us are gonna pick a couple of your recipes and be like, nailed it.
Oh gosh. So yeah, that was for we had this event called Thronesgiving, where it was every time there was a new season of Game of Thrones had come out, we would host I want to say the fewest people I had was about 14. The largest number of people I had was 17. Would come to our house and I would cook up a multi-course meal based off the show. And that particular year, I want to say, the dragon eggs, I think that was the final season.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
we don't talk about the final season. It doesn't.
I based it off of. I based the. Because I always base it off of I've gotten to the point where I based it off the end of the last season.
Sure.
So I was going, okay, this season, who's left? Who do we have left?
Right.
After basically like the queens, like all the queens except for maybe 2 are just gone. So yeah, I did those dragon eggs for Daenerys, but I also I did like basically 2 Italian recipes for that. I did the stuffed artichokes, which is like stuffed with breadcrumbs. That's a traditional Italian recipe. But also there is a sauce called dragon sauce. It's tarragon based in Italian cuisine. So I did that in the recipe, but I also did as a kind of marinade for the pork that I put on. So kind of a mix of sort of stark, sort of upper English sort of cuisine, because he is the lost Targaryen.
Right.
So that was tying those 2 dishes together. I did for Cersei and Tyrion. I did an end of summer salad with a white wine vinaigrette. And for Tyrion, I did what I call duck tits with wine. duck tits with wine poached pears, because he loves Taroshi brandy in the books, and I was able to then do duck breast, because tits.
Right.
Served with wine poached pears, but I then reduced the poaching liquid to kind of a glaze for the duck breast. It was a very involved feast, and by that point, I had finally figured out how to utilize my kitchen to do that many courses with only one oven.
That is impressive. I am saluting you. And you managed to get tits and wine.
I know, that's perfect.
So I'm just...
Oh yeah, and
I'm over the moon.
what did I do? Oh, for the Stark sisters, I did kind of a take on Sister Stew, but it was based off of their experiences.
Okay.
The divergent experiences. So there's the cockles, clams, and whatnot, and oh god, it's been so long since I've done this recipe. It's one of those things. It's like there's a reason why it takes time between each post for my blog, and it's not because it's taking me that long to figure out what to cook. It's everything to do with the fact I'm writing an English paper essentially for each post.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it is lovely. We joke about how people always like, just jump to the recipe, but I will say your descriptions are phenomenal.
I did interrupt you when you were in the middle of your Percy Jackson explanation, though, if you want to
sure, I'll go back to it. Okay, so what I did was I had beef brisket, but I did a rub using garlic powder, fennel seed, and cayenne pepper. And to go along with that, fennel seed. Fennel is associated with Hephaestus. Partially is because how fire was brought down to Earth for humans was through Prometheus. Prometheus was usually associated as a smith for Hephaestus, so bringing down fire using a fennel stalk from the sun to the Earth. So fennel is often associated with Hephaestus. Garlic powder and cayenne. Well, the truth is I couldn't really find any food associations with Ares except for the neo-pagans happened to attribute spicy plants like cayenne and garlic with Ares. So that was my nod to Ares there. Beef itself the bull is sacred to Zeus. I mean, granted, I feel like if Rick Riordan really wanted to go with something that would make sense to be served to the campers every night, cost-effective wise, but also being sacred to, the goddess who's thing, he would have gone with like pulled pork. But I think Rick Riordan just likes beef brisket, so I think that's why he went with it.
There ain't nothing wrong with beef brisket.
The Jewish person here would not argue with that.
But pomegranate, it's actually associated not just with Hades and Persephone, it's also associated with Aphrodite and Hera. So
the love apple.
I did do pomegranate. I did a barbecue sauce using pomegranate juice.
Oh, yum.
Dried mint for both Hades and Demeter. Bay leaves because of both Artemis and Apollo. And I used Diet Coke because Dionysus drinks Diet Coke in the books instead of wine because he's being punished by being the camp director for Camp Half-Blood.
Could you sub in regular Coke if you're allergic to...
Oh, yeah. You could totally do that.
Aspartame?
I mean,
cool.
And I know not everyone...
For the people trying to recreate
I know
this.
not everyone's a big fan of aspartame either, so go for it.
Right.
You mentioned Hephaestus. I have to pause here and do a plug for Drew Hayes, who wrote a book called Forging Hephaestus. He's on the main crew of Authors and Dragons, and that is his Villains Code Book 1. It's called Forging Hephaestus, and it probably is 50,000 million jillion kabillion words because he writes big books, but they're awesome.
And he
Anyway, sorry.
No
Proceed.
worries. I then cooked the remaining some of the remaining spice rub. Yeah, the remaining spice rub with celery and olive oil. And celery is associated with Poseidon and olive oil with Athena, which is kind of funny because of the rivalry within Greek mythology, as well as in the Percy Jackson books. Though I think I read some, there are some, if I kind of go off on a tiny little tangent, there are some records of Athena and Poseidon potentially actually being spouses in, I want to say, folklore predating what we know of Greek mythology. So that's also where we probably see a little bit of their rivalry. But that is, like, I digress there. Then after reducing all of that, I added strawberry jam because strawberries are one associated with Hermes, but also Camp Half-Blood grows strawberries instead of grapes because Dionysus can't have grapes. Whatever.
Aw.
But also to make money for the camp, which I'm just going, what? Can't just, make wine out of strawberries. Strawberry wine's a thing. Okay, I believe you. Not really. And see, I then smoked all of it with a combination of oak, apple, and walnut chips. Apple is associated with Aphrodite for partially for the Helen of Troy Paris story, but apple is kind of universally thought as kind of a youth and fertility sort of fruit in most folklore and mythology. So we have apple chips, walnut groves. There are walnut groves that are sacred to Artemis, and oak is also sacred to Zeus. So I smoked that in a combination of those 3 wood chips for making up that barbecue sauce, and it was excellent. But oh man, as far as future things coming up that I'm really would like to do, I just read I think it was The Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia.
Oh yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I also really enjoyed her Mexican Gothic, but
I loved that one.
Mm-hmm.
I sense tacos being able to happen.
Well, the trouble with Mexican Gothic is that most of it takes, like, while it's in Mexico, it takes place in this
This
her
dark and
cousin
brooding manor house.
that was basically transported from England brick by brick
Yep.
to Mexico. And the only dish that I found in there is chicken with mushrooms. However, there is a chicken cream mushroom Mexican dish that many folks don't really know about. So I'm thinking about maybe making that and doing a little bit more of spices and herbs to kind of pump it up a bit, even though the book it would have been severely bland. But here's the thing. It's one thing to, eat it because it's what was in the book. It's another thing to actually enjoy it.
Right.
That is true.
Right.
But yeah, Beautiful Ones is based in kind of a Belle Epoque era fantasy France. And the only food that's really mentioned is when the main male character is visiting the main female character's home in the mountains. And it looks very much like the Pyrenees, based off of the description of the meal, that it's a vegetable soup that's mostly cabbage. That's the first course, followed by rabbit and lamb with condiments. And I didn't find that so much, but there is a dish in Gascon cuisine called garber, which means essentially like from the wheat. And it's more of a based off of the region sort of naming convention, but normally it's a very Savoy cabbage heavy stew and potatoes and other vegetables that
Potatoes.
like usually a ham hock has been cooked in, which is then removed before, or either that or duck confit, which is then removed and then served with condiments.
Okay.
I would probably, once I figure out how to do the recipe and make it enough of my own, and also be able to afford both lamb shank, I'm not going to do rabbit for it just because of, um, for one, it's very hard to get rabbit without having to order it online.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm in Atlanta, I can get it, no problem. But
Oh, I thought it was normal. They have it in the stores here, but I'm in Massachusetts, so
yeah, it varies depending on your grocery store, but also you're probably in an area where it's farmed more locally too. While
that is
here
true.
we have to go to either like a Korean grocery store chain called H Mart, or
The greatest of all grocery stores.
either Buford Highway Farmers Market or DeKalb Farmers Market in Atlanta. I've got a lot of folks all over the country that are fans of the blog, and a lot of folks that are not usually able to get anything more exotic than Italian parsley
Right.
in their grocery store if they're lucky.
Yeah.
So apparently rabbit does taste similar to chicken thighs. So
Yes, and it cooks similar. The rabbit leg and chicken
and
thigh.
quite frankly, I prefer the taste of chicken to rabbit. I've cooked it a few times. I'm not the biggest fan of one, how it tastes, but also two, it's different. Became really weird to me after cooking rabbit when I was petting my cat and going, oh, here's where the joints connect to the. Nope, I'm not doing this ever again. I'm not doing this.
It's a little gruesome to break down, I won't
Yeah.
lie. It's like the first time you get a duck with the head and the eyes are staring at you as you're about to
And they
chomp.
don't always remove all of the entrails either when they give it to you, so it's like, great.
They're a feature.
Uh-huh.
Feature. Because rabbit kidneys are delicious.
Well, you know, this
It's more
may
of
this may be the first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's like oh, there's intestines. There they are. They just came out in the broth. Great. Cool. Oh. Okay.
Well, I think we're close to our time, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us this for most of the part, most of the most of the chat, other than the the entrails and the intestines part. I was drooling, and this is probably the first podcast that I have a puddle of drool on my keyboard. But this has been fascinating, and I definitely will. I want to try things on your blog now. They might be impossible for me, but it would be super funny and fun.
Absolutely.
I will help you through them if you get stuck,
Yay!
Emily. I'm here for you.
Catherine, if you would, before we go, remind everybody how they can find you again.
They can find me on my website at thegluttonousgeek.com or gluttonousgeek.com too. That redirects. I mean, just Google Gluttonous Geek and it should pop right up. Or they can find me on all the social media channels. I'm not so active on Instagram, I will admit.
Okay.
Just because it is a lot of work. But it can also find me weekly on Twitch, Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. for my tabletop role-playing game themed cooking show, Munchies and Minis, where I make recipes based off of like whatever I can find in tabletop role-playing games.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We've really enjoyed chatting with you, and we're going to say goodnight now. So good night,
Okay.
Catherine. Good night, listeners. Good night, my fellow compatriots, and we will see you again soon.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Pleasure to be on.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.